Welcome back, guys. So, moving on from last night, then I have obviously let the silver paint cure with the gloss coat I put over it, and then through the day, once it was fully cured, I sprayed on a fine layer of hairspray. Now, it was just ordinary common garden stronghold hairspray I nicked from the missus's side table. So that has dried off and we're ready to paint. What paints are we using, like you say? Well, obviously the call out is for Ammo by MIG, which I don't have. I'm a Tamiya guy through and through. So looking by the paint callouts they're saying, so they're asking for the main colors is Sky Type S, Ocean Grey and Dark Green. So Tamiya have XF82 Ocean Grey, and that is the RAF2. They have XF81 RAF Green, Dark Green 2. We've got XF21 Sky. I've also got XF83 Medium Sea Grey 2 RAF. Now, you say, why are you using that? Well, the colour they're showing on the underside of the aircraft is definitely not Sky, because Sky is that lovely sort of duck egg green colour. That is definitely medium sea grey. I've done a bit of research and it looks like it is medium sea grey on the underside, so that's fine. Sky is used for the spinner and the identification band around the rear fuselage. We've got some XF2 here to lighten the paint for a bit of mottling, and then I've also got Mr. Hobby RLM yellow. I can't remember the code because the label is completely destroyed, but it's just basically German World War II yellow, insignia yellow. It's a really nice colour and it's a reasonably close match to the AMIG colour and also to the RAF yellow used for the leading edge of the wings, because we're going to go and spray that in as well just because. So there we go, we've got the bulk of the colours. What we need to do is think about spraying. So I'm going to actually spray the top half second. We're going to do the underside first, and that's simply because if we look at the painting instructions, we can see the chin, underside chin panel is a demarcation line along the panel line, so that's an easy one to mask, and then we just need to do a simple bit of masking along to just pretty much where the rear tail wheel is. So it would be easier to do the underside, let a little bit of overspray go over the kit, and then mask it up, come back in and spray the top on, and then when you unmask you'll have that really nice demarcation line between the lower side and the upper side. Now I have also got to think about the interior of the flaps. Again, I'm not actually sure what colour that is going to be, so I've got to do a little bit of research. It may be interior green, which we can put that first, let it dry, and then close up the flaps to paint the actual sky and medium sea grey. So I'm going to do a little bit of research because I haven't done that yet. We're going to figure out what that is, and if that is medium sea grey in there, if it is interior green in there, we'll do that now, and then we'll come back and we'll start looking at getting the underside colour on. So it's back in a moment. So after a little research, it would appear that there's a couple of choices as what we can do for the flap colour. One is interior green, the other is silver. That seems to be the consensus. However, it would appear that if a pilot left the flaps down after landing, then they actually got a fine. So the third option is to glue the flaps shut. And I'm kind of inclined to maybe do that. We could leave them open, but I think it might spoil the lines of the aircraft, plus the fact they're quite fragile and they seem to be breaking on me. So I'm actually going to, I've taken an executive decision, I'm going to glue them shut and we're going to paint the aircraft as it is. So I'll just get out with the Tamiya extra thin, we'll get them glued shut and then we'll come back and start the painting. Right, we're back and we are ready to go. So flaps are now glued closed. Wish I'd done that at the start, but hey ho. You live and you learn. All part of modeling's rich pageant. Actually, one of them's proven to be a little tricky to glue down. It doesn't want to stay. But we'll get them in. But anyway, they're glued closed and it looks good. What I've also done is I've masked up the radiators because the interior of the radiator bay needs to be painted underside medium sea grey. So what we'll do is we'll blow this in quickly. So usual 50-50 mix, Tamiya paint to thinners. 15 psi. That's that done. Right. So how are we going to tackle this then? Well, usually I would spend all my time marbling the panels and then putting over a very thin misty coat to finish it in. But what I'm planning to do is I'm actually going to paint along all the rivet lines and all the panel lines to highlight them. And then we're going to paint over after that. Now that seems kind of backwards, and it is, but I thought it's worth a try just to see if we can get a different type of finish. So with a 2.8 needle, and I've taken the crown cap off so I can see just exactly where the paint's going, we can start painting. Now, first impression is there's a good firm trigger pull with this brush, so you certainly know you're working it. And it's using quite a bit of air, so it's what you call an air hungry brush. Right, what we're going to do, we'll do all the main panel lines first. I actually think what I'm going to do is just try and turn the pressure down just a little bit. Alright, down to about 5 psi. We'll see how that goes. Okay, the airbrush is just struggling to put that out of that, so we need to put it back up. So back up to just about 12 psi. That's better. We're getting a bit of tip dry here. it certainly gets, it's more interesting to learn to use the trigger airbrush when you're used to using a top trigger actuated airbrush. Definitely a different technique. Now we just need to gently dust in the wheel wells. And then we need to go over these rivet lines here. Right, we've got some pan lines to go on the aileron. And the wingtip. Right, and then once we've done that, we've got a few lines to go over the flap. There we go. Right, so what I also need to do is we need to glue this, take the radiator masking off and glue this on so we can paint this with the wing. And then we're all a matching colour. So give me 2 seconds to glue this on and then we'll come back in. Right, so we've got the underside radiator on and we've got the first layer of prime down. Now, for some of these bigger panels, we can come back in and we can do a little bit of mottling. So that just fills in a little bit, gives a little bit of interest, and then what we need to do then is just come in, pull back a bit, and lay on this colour coat. Come in for a different angle. There we go. Now we just need to let that dry back a little bit. We can see what the colour looks like. So there's the first wing. So I'm going to do that exact paintwork to the whole model, just following all the panel lines, a little bit of mottling on the bigger panels, and then we'll come back once we've done all that and we'll look at getting masked up. Well, actually no, we might look at some post shading with a little bit of highlighting from white, but we'll see how the finished is. So back in a moment. So we're back and we've got all our panel line pre-shading done. It's looking quite nice. Just got a touch in here, and we can do a little bit of mottling. Now, in order to get better paint flow, I have actually thinned the paint a little bit more, and those keen-eyed people amongst you will see that there is some Vallejo flow improver sitting on the bench, and I've put a few drops of that in as well, and it seems to have made a world of difference. I was having a bit of a trouble with tip dry on this airbrush, so some Vallejo flow improver and another 10% thinners, and it's painting beautifully. So now that we've got the pre-shading done, we can come in and just lay down the top layers in. Do the wheel well first. So 90 degrees to one another. Nice light misty coat just to lay down on the wings. Give the trigger ever something, it's a lot easier to hold for longer than a normal airbrush. Horizontal stabilizers. And that's it. So, need to let that dry, let the pre-shading come back through, and then we can think about if we need to do any highlighting work. Right, also what I need to paint is the wheel well, the undercarriage bay doors, and I'm going to paint the undercarriage wheels itself. So give me 5 minutes or so, we'll get all that painted up, and then we can come back and think about how we think the finish has gone, and do we need to do any modulation. See you soon. Right guys, we're back, and our paint finish is now dry, beautiful and smooth, and hopefully you can see that we've got a little bit of tonal variation, not a huge amount, but there's definitely some in there, and I think when we get the oil washes on, it's going to really start to pop. But now that we've got the underside done, I've also done the wheel well doors, so they match in rather nice. If I can get them on the right way, of course. And we've done the undercarriage, so just need to put on the chrome for the oleo leg. So that's all looking really rather nice. Now, grabbing our standard 5mm Tamiya tape, Just laying on, always lay it on the back of my hand just to take the worst of the tack off. Just be mindful not to have any hairs protruding through. We need to think about masking. Now, thankfully for us, masking shouldn't be too much of a problem because there's pretty much panel lines to follow everywhere we're needing to mask. So the first mask runs from, actually it might be easier if we lay it down with a pair of tweezers. Mask runs from the edge of the wing fillet here, or gusset, or whatever you want to call it. So edge of the tape, match it up to the contour, edge of the contour, hold your thumb on the end, and then you'll see that tape will just nicely run down the panel line there. Now don't burnish this tape down like it's the you're frightened the wind's going to take it or something, because it just makes it harder. Well, it just gives you more risk of lifting paint after you've finished with it. So just rub it down gently. Tamiya tape does not need to be rubbed into oblivion. Second side, same place. So we come in on the fillet there and then run down the panel line. Gently tacking it down with your thumb. There we go. Overlaps here. Perfect. Now, looking at the instructions, I'll just grab me I've got one here. Got a scalpel. Nice sharp blade on it. So looking at the instructions, this panel line here, just double check that. Yeah, this panel line here. So it's underneath the wing. And it's just in front of the rear wheel is where we need to cut. And it's handy that it's the panel line. So we can just gently slip the blade into the panel line. You'll feel it locate. Once it's located, just run that blade over and then gently peel away the excess tape. And there we go. We can use those excess bits of tape just to fill in bits of the rear fuselage. And what we can do is get slightly wider tape. Now we're getting away from the narrow end. We can just lay that in. Make sure it stays within the edge of the masking tape. Now, as we're spraying the plane down this way, we really only need to protect that part there. The edge of the wings will be our natural masks to stop overspray going underneath. Here is another area we need to mask. It's the same again. Obviously we're not needing long strips of masking tape, just shorter pieces. So we'll get the tweezers, because the tweezers help us put it in nice and accurately. Again, it's just following the panel line, which is really, really handy. There is a little bit, I think it is, yeah, there's a little bit of curve on that panel line. So you just do it in sections. Like that, and then just gently kink it in. You can see there's a little kink here, and that's just come about because of the curvature we've put on the masking tape. be quite honest with you, masking is my least favourite part of the hobby. I find it tedious and annoying, but it's got to be done if you want to get that nice demarcation between your camouflage colours. And if you take a bit of time about it, get it accurate, it all adds to the overall finish of the aircraft. So, same again, once we've got the edges defined, we'll just come back in with a slightly wider tape, remembering to bend it as it goes. There we go. So there's our main bits of masking, and we also need to mask these off. That should be easy enough. Again, we'll use a small narrow piece of tape to start with. How I like to do this is just to hold one end tight to the fuselage where it needs to be, and use the tweezers at the other end. Gentle burnish down. Same on the other side. Get that underneath the activating cable. There we go. And then we'll use the bigger tape, and we could use the biggest tape still, but I'll go for this one. Seems I've got it to hand. Make sure you overlap the tape so there's no openings that can get paint contamination through. And then what I also do, because we don't want the paint wrapping around the horizontal stabilizer, so just take a scalpel, nice sharp, and just clear the edge away. With the offcuts, then there's a little gap here need to fill in that just wasn't masked, so we just go in there and mask that. Now we need to be careful with the tail that we get the masking tape taken out of here, so we don't get a. All we have to do is just pull it over once we've cut it and then burnish it back down. There we go. So same again here. Just make sure you don't go too close to the edge of the plastic. We don't want to cut into it. We just want to trim the bulk of the excess off. If there's not much to grip, just go in and hold it with the tweezers just to get the tension on to help the blade work. It is just predominantly to. There we go. Right. Lovely little bits of tape. I tend to keep a little pile on my cutting board, and that is just for catching any little bits and pieces that I've missed. Cotton buds are very good for masking, or Q-tips if you're on the other side of the channel, purely because they're nice and soft, so you can go in and re-burnish down any tape and you're not going to do any damage. Right, last bit to mask and then we're done. I suppose if you cut it neater, then you won't have so much wastage. Tamiya tape's certainly not getting any cheaper, that's for sure, but it's so good. It's one of those tapes that's a must-have for the modeler. The companies do tapes. I know Revell does their own tape. I just happen to really like Tamiya tape. Used it for years, and it's so widely available as well, which is a godsend. Overcook that one a little bit. Right, and that is my masking pretty much done. Short, sharp, and to the point. Like I said, I don't particularly like using oodles and oodles of masking tape if I can avoid it, and I don't like having to mask. I like to spray freehand and then use different templates where necessary to introduce a hard camouflage line. So just trim that off there. Round onto the rear side. And we'll just cut this piece here. This is why you need a sharp scalpel. I need to keep tension on the tape. Right, we are masked. So you can just see there's just a marginal line around the tail.